Number 10. Feeling exhausted even after sleep. You wake up, but it doesn't feel like waking up. It feels like returning from a war you don't remember fighting. The bed isn't a place of rest anymore. It's a recharge station that barely keeps the lights on. You slept 8 hours, maybe 9, but your body acts like it owes someone sleep debt it can never repay. That's the first whisper of emotional burnout when your rest stops restoring you. See, physical tiredness fades with sleep, but emotional exhaustion, it drains from the soul outward. It's the kind of fatigue that seeps into the bones, into the small moments brushing your teeth, opening your laptop, replying to a text. Everything feels heavier than it logically should. Your brain begins doing something subtle. It starts conserving energy by caring less. You skip breakfast. You delay replies. You stop reacting to the world because every reaction costs energy you don't have. It's not laziness, it's survival. Caffeine becomes your lifeline. Naps turn into escapes. And yet, even when your body is still, your mind keeps pacing in circles, replaying, replanning, re-worrying. The science calls it cognitive fatigue, but emotionally, it feels like drowning in dry air. Your mind runs all night behind closed eyes, solving invisible problems, negotiating with imaginary futures. That's why you wake up feeling like you never truly left yesterday. Because you didn't. You carried it into your dreams. Here's the cruel part. Burnout disguises itself as tiredness, so you keep telling yourself, I just need one good night's sleep. But nights pile up. Sleep keeps coming. Energy doesn't. Because the real drain isn't lack of rest, it's the emotional overload you never pause to process. You're not lazy. You're not weak. You're simply running on a battery designed for living, not enduring. And when living starts to feel like enduring, even 8 hours of sleep can't save you. Number 9. Snapping at small requests. It starts with something tiny. Someone asks, "Can you send me that file?" And suddenly your pulse spikes. You clench your jaw, breathe out sharply and say, "I said I'll do it." But inside, even you don't know why that small question felt like an attack. That's how burnout rewires your patience. It's not anger at people, it's anger at being touched by anything that demands more from you. When your emotional system runs on fumes, even a whisper feels like pressure. Your tolerance shrinks, your empathy thins, and every request sounds like another brick on your back. See, snapping isn't about the words, it's about the weight behind them. You've been carrying too much for too long. You've said, "I got it" 1,000 times until your mind quietly started screaming, "I don't." Every small demand reminds you of how stretched you already are. And when people ask for just one more thing, they don't realize that one more is exactly what breaks the thread. In burnout, your brain is trapped in fight-or-flight mode even during casual moments. That's why a text, an email, or a knock on the door can feel like an ambush. You're not snapping at others, you're snapping at the noise, the chaos, the endless expectation that you must stay functional no matter how hollow you feel inside. Afterward, guilt hits. You replay the scene, hating yourself for overreacting, promising you'll be calmer next time. But the truth is, you can't pour calm from an empty cup. And emotional exhaustion empties you faster than any workload ever could. When every small sound feels like thunder, it's not because you're broken, it's because your nervous system is begging for silence. That silence isn't peace, it's survival. And the moment you find yourself snapping at what once barely bothered you, that's your soul whispering, "I can't carry all of this anymore." Number 8. Forgetting simple daily tasks. You walk into a room and forget why you came. You open the fridge and stare at nothing. You miss appointments, misplace your keys, leave messages half-written. It's not forgetfulness, it's brain fog, wearing the mask of burnout. Your mind used to juggle everything, tasks, memories, emotions, all in sync. But now, the system crashes mid-process. That's not weakness, that's a warning. Because when the brain is emotionally overloaded, it begins doing something brutal. It starts shutting down non-essential functions. Burnout isn't just emotional tiredness, it's neurological clutter. Your prefrontal cortex, the part that helps with memory, focus, and decision-making, literally dims under chronic stress. You're not forgetting because you don't care. You're forgetting because your brain is prioritizing survival over structure. That's why you find yourself rereading the same paragraph 5 times. Why you forget if you locked the door or replied to that message. You're not losing your mind, you're losing mental bandwidth. And the scariest part? You start getting used to it. You laugh it off. Ha ha ha, my brain's fried. But deep down, you know something's off. You used to remember birthdays, details, stories. Now, it's all static. Your brain keeps buffering like a slow web page that can't load the next thought. This is how emotional burnout hides in plain sight, not as sadness or rage, but as disconnection. Every forgotten task is a tiny blackout. A moment your mind says, "I can't handle one more piece of input." And the more you push through it, the worse it gets. Because every time you force productivity from exhaustion, you teach your brain that rest is optional. Until one day you realize it's not that you're forgetful, it's that your mind is full and it's begging for a reboot. You don't need reminders. You need recovery. You don't need better memory. You need mercy. Because burnout doesn't erase thoughts, it erases space to hold them. Number 7. Avoiding people you once enjoyed. You start replying slower. You cancel plans with excuses that sound believable even to you. You tell friends you're just tired. But that's not it, is it? You're tired of being around energy you can't match anymore. Once, you loved the noise laughter, group chats, late-night conversations. Now, even the idea of talking feels like lifting weights underwater. Burnout doesn't just drain your body, it drains your capacity to connect. Because connection needs presence, and presence demands energy. Here's the truth no one says aloud. When you're emotionally burned out, even love feels heavy. You start dreading phone calls, ghosting texts, hiding behind maybe later. It's not that you've stopped caring, it's that caring has become exhausting. You still love your people, but now their presence feels like one more thing you have to manage. Your nervous system, already overloaded, starts treating social interaction like a threat. The same way your body flinches at loud noise, your mind flinches at emotional noise. You crave silence, solitude, control. Not because you're antisocial, but because socializing now costs emotional currency you no longer have. You scroll through memories, the parties, the shared jokes, the warmth, and you miss who you were. But when you try to recreate it, something feels off. You smile, but it's mechanical. You listen, but your mind drifts. You sit among friends, but feel like a ghost in your own life. That's the cruel irony of burnout. It isolates you to heal you, but that isolation deepens the wound. Because while your mind begs for quiet, your heart still longs for connection. You're trapped between needing people and needing peace. So, if you find yourself avoiding those who once made you feel alive, don't shame yourself for it. It's not rejection, it's repair. Your silence isn't a wall, it's a hospital room where your emotions are trying to recover. You'll return when your soul remembers how to listen without hurting. Number 6. Losing interest in hobbies gradually. It doesn't happen suddenly. One day you just stop feeling that spark. The music you once loved becomes background noise. The sketchbook stays closed. The guitar gathers dust. And the weird part? You don't even feel guilty at first, just numb. That's how emotional burnout steals from you quietly, gently, without a fight. It doesn't crash in like sadness. It seeps in like fog. You stop chasing what you loved because love itself starts feeling like effort. The brain, overwhelmed by stress, stops releasing dopamine, that small, invisible spark that turns curiosity into joy. So even when you try to return to your old passions, they feel flat, like watching a fire through glass, visible but untouchable. You tell yourself, I'll get back to it soon. But soon becomes later, later becomes never. Because joy, once effortless, now feels like work. And every time you try, your mind whispers, why bother? Here's what's really happening. Burnout replaces inspiration with obligation. Even the things meant to recharge you start feeling like to-do lists. That's why artists go silent. Gamers log off. Readers stop turning pages. Not because they stopped loving those things, but because the joy generator inside them ran out of charge. But here's the truth you need to hear. Your hobbies aren't gone. They're waiting. They're in hibernation, not extinction. Joy doesn't die in burnout. It just loses its voice until the noise quiets down. So stop calling it laziness. Stop calling it losing yourself. You're still there beneath the ashes of exhaustion. And when you finally give yourself permission to rest without guilt, the spark will return slowly, softly, almost shyly. You won't feel it at once, but one random day you'll pick up that paintbrush or that playlist or that journal and realize joy never left. It was just waiting for you to breathe again. Number 5. Overusing phrases like whatever. Whatever. It slips out casually at first. A harmless word, a shortcut to avoid arguments, to end sentences faster. But soon, it becomes your shield, your emotional firewall against caring too much. Burnout doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like apathy, like someone who stopped expecting anything to change because disappointment hurts more than silence. So instead of explaining, you shrug. Instead of arguing, you withdraw. And every time you say whatever, what you really mean is, I don't have the strength to care right now. It's the vocabulary of exhaustion, small words built from deep fatigue. You start using them everywhere. Sure, it's fine, I guess. Each one sounds peaceful on the surface, but beneath it, there's quiet surrender. It's not that you don't feel, it's that feeling has become too expensive. See, when your mind stays in survival mode for too long, it starts trimming away emotional reactions. Not because it doesn't care, but because it's trying to save you from overload. That's why everything starts blurring together, the good, the bad, the exciting, the boring. All of it feels like one flat tone, neutral, and neutrality feels safe for a while, until you realize safety has turned into silence. Conversations lose depth, decisions lose weight. You stop saying what you want because wanting anything feels like work. People might call you cold or distant, but that's not true. You're not cold, you're burned. And when everything inside you feels scorched, numbness becomes the only form of comfort. Whatever is your mind's white flag, a quiet way of saying, please, not one more emotional battle. But here's the thing, indifference isn't the end. It's the body's way of pausing before it restarts. When you slowly relearn how to rest, how to feel without drowning, you'll find that behind every whatever was always a whisper. I just needed someone to notice. Number 4. Eating without tasting food. You sit down to eat, you chew, you swallow, you scroll your phone, you stare at nothing, and before you even realize it, the plate is empty. You ate, but you didn't taste. That's how burnout feeds not on hunger, but on autopilot. When your emotions go offline, your senses follow. Flavor fades, texture disappears, and eating becomes mechanical, a survival act, not an experience. You used to notice things, the crunch of toast, the warmth of soup, the sweetness of mangoes. Now it's all just motion, repetitive, dull, necessary. Because when your mind is overloaded, even pleasure gets filtered out. The brain, trying to conserve energy, starts shutting down emotional and sensory engagement. It says, let's just get this done. And you obey. You chew without awareness, swallow without joy, not because food stopped tasting good, but because you stopped tasting life. Burnout numbs everything that once grounded you: food, music, laughter, even small joys. It's like your soul is watching the world from behind soundproof glass. That's why you crave comfort food but feel nothing after eating it. Why you eat late at night, not out of hunger, but habit, chasing a feeling that never arrives. It's emotional anesthesia, using repetition to fill silence. You think you're feeding your body, but you're really trying to feed your emptiness. And when you finally notice it, that the act of eating has lost flavor, it's one of burnout's quietest warnings. Because losing taste isn't about your tongue, it's about your presence. You're not with the moment anymore. You're watching yourself live it from a distance. So here's the truth. Your appetite isn't gone, it's asleep. And you don't wake it up with more food, you wake it by slowing down, by breathing, by actually tasting again, by letting your senses remember that living isn't just existing, it's feeling. Number 3. Scrolling endlessly without joy. You open your phone just for a minute, then another. Then an hour disappears, swallowed whole by the scroll. You don't even know what you're looking for, but you keep swiping, as if something important is hiding just one post away. That's not boredom. That's emotional burnout trying to numb itself. Scrolling becomes your modern-day lullaby, soft, endless, predictable. No emotions, no effort, no expectations. Just a stream of noise that keeps you company while your brain quietly shuts down. You don't laugh anymore at the funny clips. You don't feel inspired by the quotes. You just drift. Each swipe gives your brain a microsecond of stimulation, a chemical breadcrumb of dopamine. But like junk food, it never fills you. It just keeps you hooked on the feeling of almost feeling something. And that's the trap, the illusion of connection in a digital void. You see lives, faces, adventures, but you're not living any of them. You're just watching from the other side of a glowing screen, hoping to feel alive through someone else's highlight reel. The irony? You're scrolling to escape your exhaustion, but the endless feed only deepens it. It teaches your brain that stillness equals emptiness, that silence must be filled. So even when you finally put your phone down, the scrolling continues in your head. You replay reels, quotes, arguments, faces. Your mind stays stuck in motion long after your thumb stops moving. That's not entertainment, that's emotional sedation. A way to silence the noise inside by drowning it in noise outside. But there's a moment, a small, powerful one, when you finally notice it. When you pause mid-scroll and feel the weight of that emptiness hit. That's not failure, that's awareness. And awareness is how the healing begins. Because real peace doesn't live in endless motion. It lives in stillness, the kind we forgot how to scroll toward. Number 2. Struggling to start any new task. You sit there staring at the list. It's not even long. A few emails, a form, a call. But every item feels like a mountain made of fog. You can't see the top, can't even take the first step. This is how burnout traps you. Not in chaos, but in stillness. You want to move desperately, but your body won't listen. Your brain starts whispering lies that sound like logic. I'll do it after lunch. I just need motivation. I'll feel better in an hour. But that hour keeps moving forward, and the task remains untouched, like a door you can't make yourself open. It's not procrastination, it's paralysis. When you've been running on stress for too long, your nervous system doesn't know how to function without adrenaline. So when the rush fades, your body mistakes calm for emptiness, and emptiness feels unbearable. Starting becomes terrifying because it means re-engaging with a world that already drained you dry. The smallest actions, opening a file, writing a message, cleaning a corner, start feeling monumental. You keep looping in mental rehearsals. I'll do it in a bit. But deep down, your mind is begging for one thing: permission to pause, without guilt. This is the burnout paradox. You're exhausted from doing too much, yet ashamed for doing too little. So you sit in limbo, half wanting to act, half wanting to disappear. Time slips by in fragments, and every unfinished task becomes another silent accusation. But here's the truth. It's not that you've lost discipline. You've lost direction. Your system is protecting you from more overload by freezing the psychological equivalent of a power outage. So don't call it laziness. Call it recovery in disguise. Because healing doesn't always look like movement sometimes. It looks like stillness so deep that starting feels impossible. And when you finally do one small task, one small click, that's not productivity, that's resurrection. Number 1. Feeling numb instead of angry or sad. There comes a point where you stop reacting. Not because you've healed, but because you've hit the ceiling of what your emotions can process. You stop crying, stop arguing, stop caring. The world keeps moving, people keep demanding, and you just watch. It's not peace, it's absence. That's emotional burnout's final stage, numbness. When your nervous system, after carrying too much for too long, simply shuts the lights off. It's your body saying, we can't feel anymore without breaking. At first, it feels strange, calm even. You think, maybe I'm finally over it. But soon you notice the silence isn't soothing. It's hollow. Songs don't move you. Movies don't hit. Even pain feels distant, like it's happening to someone else. You don't feel alive, but you don't feel dead either. You just exist. Science calls it emotional blunting. It's when your brain stops releasing the chemicals tied to emotional response, a defense mechanism against overload. You've cried so much, fought so long, overthought so deeply that your mind decides the safest way to survive is to stop reacting altogether. You become an observer in your own story. You say, I'm fine. And for once, you almost believe it because there's nothing left to compare it to. No highs, no lows, just gray. And yet, beneath that silence, something small still flickers, the faint pulse of who you are. Because numbness isn't emptiness, it's protection. Your system has gone offline so you can reboot safely. The healing doesn't start when you feel better. It starts when you feel again. When anger returns, when sadness stings, when laughter surprises you. Those are the first sparks of emotional re-entry, proof that your soul is coming back online. So if you feel nothing right now, don't panic. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. And sometimes, before the light returns, the world has to go quiet, completely quiet, so you can finally hear your heart restart.